Guys, we're back in Needham today, and we are working on the outside as well as the inside. If you guys live in the New England area, you know we have been battling some rain days. In between those rain days, we have been working on all of the exterior paint. So behind me is the final condition of the nickel gap siding here. So a lot of you guys have asked what material that is. That is the Boral under the Westlake building product family. So that is a fly ash material, and it's been filled and prepped and now painted in its final color. And then if you look up at all the roof trim is a really dark paint color, and it's actually designed to match the luxury bronze windows, which is that gelled win color. And then finally we have the color on the cedar shingles, which was a pre-dipped product. So we actually didn't paint the cedar shingles. We do have some touch-ups to do here and there, but I wanted to show you guys kind of what that final condition looked like on the back here. This roof comes down right into the nickel gap. Siders did a really great job of tucking that aluminum kick-out flashing behind the material and then scribing the siding around it. And then over here, if you look really, really closely, we actually have lead that we hand formed up and around that window casing and then behind all of that nickel gap. So if you look very closely, as rain, snow, ice comes down that roof, we are protecting that edge of that casing and ultimately kicking that water away from that casing. Some of you guys have said, why wouldn't you have moved the window? Well, there's things that constrain that. The interior design, specifically those windows needed to be in the location that they are. So when we are dealing with stuff like that, those are some of the field conditions that we're gonna deal with. As we work our way around, we have our dining room. All of this is painted to match the nickel gap. You can actually see as we get over here, this is where likely a rain day came in and stopped them from making progress. But you can see all of the nickel gap being patched, and then they'll go back through, sand it, and paint it. And you'll actually see up here, our roof trim painted that dark luxury bronze. And then as you work your way up to that triple window, you see the raw material. Also note that the two pieces of ductwork coming out, previously we had a gas-fired heater sitting here for the cooler months. It went from cool to extremely hot and humid really quickly here in Massachusetts. So you'll see a handful of air conditioning units throughout the home. Now it's really important to maintain the relative humidity inside the home, because we do have finishes going in, we have cabinetry going in, trim going in. We want to make sure that we're maintaining humidity. Mike is actually monitoring that with humidistats throughout the home, documenting that on a daily basis to make sure that we are maintaining proper humidity control to prevent any damage. One thing I noticed showed up are these giant roof brackets. So we actually had the team over at Executive Millwork make these. They're a custom PVC shop. So we would work on them with the design that Steve Tika designed, sent those over to them to fabricate, and those will be going up to support a bunch of the roof overhangs. So it looks like they're getting set up to get those installed over the next couple days. Jumping into the mudroom, you see the tile floor is completely installed and grouted. So this is a reclaimed brick, and it's not a full thickness brick. So they're taking an old reclaimed brick, running it through a saw and cutting it down to 1/2 inch. So this right here is set at an elevation to be completely flush with our white oak flooring throughout. And you have this nice herringbone pattern throughout, and then you have the running bond pattern at the very edge as a border. One of the things you'll notice is this whole section's all running bond. The reason is because this actually gets filled with all custom material cabinetry, so none of it will actually be seen. But we do want that tile to be underneath all of our cabinet. Pretty standard detail. You can do it either way. You can run the tile up to the cabinetry. We prefer to land the cabinetry on top. That way, if you were ever to adjust or change that cabinetry later on, when you remove it, there is tile there and you're not trying to patch that in. And then back here, you can actually see that the powder room floor is also installed, which is a nice hexagon floor tile in here, which is the urinal closet. You can actually see the urinal sitting on the floor right out here. This was brought in early to make sure all plumbing was in the right spot prior to doing tile. And then we also have material on site. So they actually brought all of their boxes without face frames, doors, drawers, got all of those boxes installed. You can actually see this sacrificial 1-inch piece of maple. As well as here. What they did is they actually installed it where the countertop template needed to be. So anything that's raised up, that's where countertops are going to stop, meaning that there's going to be a full height panel here. And then this here reflects our actual overhang, or I'm sorry, our actual face frame. So this will be a traditional inset kitchen. So all of this will have a full 1-inch face frame with 1-inch door fronts and drawers. The reason that we do that is rather than, communicating, hey, make sure you account for a 1-inch face frame, which is not pretty standard. Most of the time you're seeing 3/4 of an inch. But rather than communicating that and relying on that template or the person templating to know to add 1 inch plus the actual overhang, we want to make sure that that is installed. Ideally, we'd have the face frames installed now, so there's no question, but this is a great option. And the reason we don't have the face frames installed is because they are currently being finished, but we want to keep this schedule moving, so a great detail by the team at Materia. Speaking of kitchen, we have our plaster hood. This is everything but the final coat. So everything you see here is made up of blue board and plaster. All of this is corner beaded. It's all metal corner beaded that was hand formed on site. Had some of the carpenters build a form so they could build these to be all the same. And then these cabinets here are currently set low. And what I mean by that is our countertop would actually sit. That way we can slide our countertop in, and then we can lift these cabinets up with our adjustable feet and make sure it's nice and tight to the bottom edge of this stop bead. Once the countertops are installed, then we can do our final coat on this hood, and you'll actually at that point lose all of your exposed metal bead, and this will have kind of a limestone-ish looking finish. We have a custom niche cabinet going in here. This will be for, you know, additional storage. And then over on this side we have what is called the teak sink. We will essentially have this wall faucet similar to a pot filler, and we'll have a small sink here. And that sink will be a great detail for, you know, having if you're cooking on the stove and you have maybe a pasta ladle or something, you can put it in the sink and rinse it off rather than walking over to the sink over there. Not that it's a far distance, but if it's hot or if it's wet or if it's dirty, you're not dripping it across the floor. And then where we have this table right now, this will actually be a furniture style island that we're fabricating at Materia. And that furniture style island will actually be a walnut island with turned legs. So we'll share a little bit of that as it unfolds. But it's nice to see the millwork going in here. You're gonna see that kind of throughout a bunch of the rooms. And then finally, on this side, we have our tall cabinets and future breakfast nook here. This will actually go in a little bit later because it is gonna be finished and it has some curved details. Last time we were here, these trusses were almost done. So we have these beautiful curved brackets. Essentially, we built this template to replicate that curved bracket. And then our team fabricated the 3 pieces of wood together. So you have a small section that is the vertical, and then you have a section that is on the angle, and then you have the horizontal, and all of that's connected together using large dominoes, glue, and some fasteners. And so this is the final condition, with the exception of the fact that they will be stained. So really a beautiful looking detail in this room. And, you know, again, they're solid material. You do see some of the cracking and checking, and that's really part of the beauty in using solid material rather than building up a box beam. So we have 2 staircases that we decided to fabricate off site. One of them going up to the 2nd floor and one of them going down to the basement. You can see now how this all comes together. Our team has been working on this paneling detail, which is really cool looking. It's, you know, just about 6 foot tall, and it adds a lot of texture to this room, and it ties into the staircase. And then loops back into these floor to ceiling windows, and then eventually into our front door. Our front door is actually in the shop right now, going through some repair work because unfortunately the manufacturer didn't hit our standard, so we'll get that up to our standard and then we'll get it installed. I really appreciate the way that they protect the stairs. Everything is wrapped in plastic because the treads are finished, and then they're installing Homasote on top of that, so as you're walking up and down, you're not damaging them. Here's a great example of kind of working in the field. We had an unfortunate condition here that didn't land exactly the way we had hoped. And I'm just showing you the reality of construction, and I want to be honest with you guys. It was a miss on the entire team, and so we ended up having to kind of rework this section, so it's very much a work in progress. Kudos to the team for figuring out a good solution here, but it was just one of those things that we missed. And you know, at the end of the day, we all agreed that whatever we do here has to look intentional, has to be the right way to do it. And if we have to undo some stuff and redo it, which is what you're looking at now, then so be it. We'll redo it and make it right. A lot of you guys had asked us the question about baseboard too, and I just want to kind of rehab that conversation. All of our baseboard was set using a laser, and a great comment came up is like, if you have to use a laser to set your baseboard, then you should probably fix your floors. Fair enough, but the reality is we are always going to scribe our baseboard. Even if the floors are dead flat, we're still going to back bevel it and there's always going to be slight discrepancies, even on the most perfect flooring. The intent is that we're dealing with slight discrepancies, and if we can set all of the baseboard at one height all the way throughout the room, it makes the relationship between bottom of window apron or future artwork or even furniture always be consistent and parallel with each other. The last thing I want to show you guys is our team at NS is actually going to be fabricating a bunk bed for this bedroom back here. We're fabricating it in place, and we'll actually tuck in a small bed underneath as well as prep it for a bed up top. So we're getting the structure fabricated, working out the layout with the team, and this will eventually be all painted to match all of our interior trim. So a fun little detail for this bedroom, which arguably I think has one of the best views. We talked about earlier these two ductworks coming out of this triple window. So we have our AC unit, and they're out throughout the home, again, maintaining humidity. We have a humidistat sitting right here, making sure that our humidity is where we want it to be, and we're monitoring that every day. And ultimately that gives us the data that we need to make sure that we're keeping the home where it needs to be, and we're always going to be protecting all of the beautiful finishes that are being installed. Until next time.